It's Wednesday, May 1. In the headlines, Jamaica's net reserves passes $5 billion mark. In business news, Mayberry Jamaican Equites reports a net loss of $1.3 billion. Regionally, Barbados is awaiting Haiti clearance to join forces with other CARICOM states to send in troops. And in sports, Finance Minister to meet with JRC and other stakeholders. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says Jamaica's gross international reserves are now at a record US $5.23 billion, based on data from the end of March. He wrote on X on Tuesday that, quote, "This should not go unnoticed," end quote, adding that, quote, "For the first time, Jamaica's net international reserves have passed the US $5 billion mark," end quote. He went on to explain the necessity of having the reserves by pointing to the country's history of chronic economic vulnerability that, he says, in large part, arise from having insufficient foreign exchange reserves in our central bank. Gross international reserves are defined as a country's dollar value of holdings of foreign exchange, special drawing rights, holdings of a country's central bank that are readily available for intervention in the foreign exchange market to address balance of payment needs. Dr. Clark says, quote, "Being of a small size while having an open economy with a liberalized foreign exchange regime makes it imperative that Jamaica has strong levels of foreign exchange reserves if we also want economic growth and development, and we want to be economically resilient and more economically independent," end quote. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett is reporting a 9.6% increase in earnings in the sector for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. He told members of Parliament on Tuesday that the sector recorded gross earnings amounting to $4.38 billion. In his opening contribution to the sectoral debate, the tourism minister reported, among other things, that the stopover arrivals are estimated at $2.96 million, reflecting a 9.4% increase.
Stopover arrivals for last year was 2.96 million, reflecting a 9.4% increase, while cruise was 1.34 million and up by 9% from the previous period in 2022-23. Preliminary gross earnings, Mr. Speaker, was 4.38 billion. And I want to make a point about that, because even at 9.6% ahead of last year, 4.38 billion is the largest revenue flow from tourism in the history of the tourism industry in Jamaica.
According to Minister Bartlett, the revenue surge at the island's airports coincided with a record-breaking 6.96 million passengers traversing these facilities.
The TEF fees, you know, the $20 per head, provided $59.2 million last year, or 9.2 billion Jamaican dollars.
He says more improvement in earnings is expected with the completion of 2,000 additional hotel rooms this year. Jamaica's tourism sector is the largest generator of foreign exchange, a major contributor to the GDP and employment, and has been among the country's fastest growing industry for several decades. Shadow Minister for Energy and Climate Change, Philip Paulwell, says most Jamaicans are not experiencing the impact of the country's economic growth. He made the comment during his contribution to the 2024 sectoral debate.
It has been a bitter experience for so many of our people. Mr. Speaker, our economy has not grown appreciably over many years. This lack of growth, or slow growth, has been linked to the poor performance of our energy sector over some decades.
He also criticized the government's management of the island's energy sector.
After some glowing and significant achievements in energy Between 2012 and 2016, we are now witnessing reversals of that trend. Mr. Speaker, the World Economic Forum's Global Energy Architecture Performance Index recorded Jamaica's dramatic improvement between 2013 and 2017, moving 74 places from 166 in the world to 92. That improvement has slowed, even with the momentum of the previous period.
The Ministry of Justice's Restorative Justice branch is aiming to ensure lasting impact on institutions through conflict resolution skills learned in the Restorative Practices Training Program. More in this report from Danita Rodney.
Over 12,000 school participants nationwide have benefited from two-day training workshops since 2022 under an MOU between the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Education and Youth. The training program targets teachers, parents, students, and school administrators. In a recent JIS think tank, Director of the Restorative Justice Branch, Joan Lee Robertson, emphasized that the training program is an investment in fostering peaceful conflict resolution and repairing any harm within school communities by strengthening relationships among members.
Restorative practices is focused on healing. What it does, it is an investment into relationships among these critical players within the institutions. Additionally, restorative practices hold each player accountable, and this is done by engaging them in collaborative conversations that allows them to explore their actions, their decisions, and their behaviors to recognize the impact that it would have had on the persons around them.
Ms. Robertson also emphasized that the desired outcome of these conversations is personal development and behavior change that will positively impact the school community.
And so from these conversations, we see a mounting personal development and change among the key players. These are very important if we are trying to rewrite the narrative of how we resolve conflicts and disputes and how we treat with the current crimes climate within our society.
In her statement, Ms. Robinson shared the importance of creating safe spaces for children.
In creating these safe spaces, we utilize circles. In our circles, we have equal footing. So whether the child is involved in a matter with another child, or if the other party is an adult, the child does not feel any less than the other person in the circle, as there is no distinction or variation in respect of role or age or authority. This is very important, as children oftentimes will shy away from sharing, and so it's very important that the process is facilitated in that way, and that also the space is conducive to sharing openly.
The Restorative Justice Branch is a division of the Ministry of Justice geared towards conflict resolution by providing an opportunity for all parties involved to come together to reach an agreement. Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I'm Danita Rodney.
Time now for the business report with Denise Williams.
Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, your guide to the latest happenings in the world of business. Declines in the performance of the local stock market has pushed the paper losses of the investment arm of the Mayberry Group. Mayberry Jamaican Equites reported a net loss of $1.3 billion for the 3 months ending March 31st, compared with a loss of $238 million for the corresponding period in 2023. This performance was attributed mainly to net unrealized losses on investments in associates of $973.5 million for the period, compared with unrealized losses of $323 million for the similar quarter last year. Total operating expenses for the quarter ending March 31 decreased by $6.4 million to $48 million, or 12%, when compared to the corresponding period in the prior year. The Urban Development Corporation, UDC, is leading an innovative commercial development initiative aimed at revolutionizing business infrastructure in Jamaica. The project, Raintree Commercial Complex, located just outside Kingston at Caymanas Estate in Ferry Pen, St. Catherine, will provide lots for commercial and light industrial purposes with all essential amenities in place. Development of the 68 lots is projected for completion within 12 to 18 months. Speaking in an interview with JIS News, General Manager UDC Robert Honeygan said, "What we are developing here is a commercial center that has all the amenities. You are talking about service lots, water being in place, sewage, electrical, roadways with a main access gate. It gives you first world finished amenities, and that's massive for the market," he noted. Mr. Honeygan also said that the complex being close to Kingston gives us opportunity for trade and shipping, assembly and manufacturing, especially to the United States, our largest trading partner, and this is wonderful access to that market. So everyone should think about this opportunity. It doesn't come every day. During trading on April 30, 2024, the following companies valued at $500 million or more in assets represent the overall volume leaders on the main market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 7,726,267 units amounted to 45.32% of the market volume. Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with 2,442,811 units amounting to 14.33% of the market volume. Supreme Ventures Limited with 1,409,131 units amounted to 8.27% of the market volume. During trading on April 30, 2024, on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the following companies represent the overall volume leaders on the junior stock market, with companies valued at $50 million or more in asset value. One Great Studio Company Limited with 7,885,193 units, amounting to 37.65% of the market volume. One-on-One Educational Services Limited with 1,689,284 units, amounting to 8.07% of the market volume. Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares with 1,481,319 units, amounting to 7.07% of the market volume. Over on the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, trading on April 30, 2024, registered a volume of 240,706 shares, crossing the floor of the exchange valued at $4,200,223 Trinidad and Tobago dollars and 68 cents. Angostura Holdings Limited was the volume leader with 84,721 shares, changing hands for a value of $1,929,915 Trinidad and Tobago dollars and 96 cents. Followed by Grace Kennedy Limited with a volume of 40,700 shares being traded for $162,805 Trinidad and Tobago dollars and 50 cents. Moving from the money moves of investors, executives, and companies, we turn to the Forex market. On April 30, 2024, the Bank of Jamaica reported that $56.3 million was bought from Forex traders, while $53.5 million was sold to Forex traders. Buying directly from the Bank of Jamaica, foreign currency traders sold the US dollar for $156.93 and bought the US dollar for $155.10. The difference between the buy and sell rate was $1.83, which represents a profit for Forex traders for every US dollar traded. Canadian Forex traders earned a trading profit of $1.80 from transactions with the Bank of Jamaica. The Canadian dollar was sold at $115.54, and bought for $113.74. Traders looking at the British pound, they pocketed a profit of $7.64, selling it for $198.15 and buying it for $190.51. For our credit report tip of the day, be aware of the length of your credit history. The length of time a borrower has held credit accounts impacts credit worthiness. A longer credit history provides more data for lenders to assess the borrower's repayment behavior. Generally, a longer history of responsible credit use is favorable. And with that, we wrap up today's business report. I'm Denise Williams. Appreciate your company. Stay well informed, stay ahead of the curve. Until our next update, take care.
Thanks, Denise. In regional news, Barbados says they are awaiting a clear signal from the newly selected Transitional Council in Haiti to join forces with other CARICOM states to send troops into that country. The 9-member Transitional Council was empaneled last Thursday to help free the nation from violent gangs and guide the country to full democracy. Stacey Russell has more.
As Haiti's Transitional Council moves to select a new president and cabinet to run the country, international security forces are awaiting the signal to enter the territory to help overcome armed gangs. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Kerry Simmons gave CBC News the update over the weekend.
Obviously, there has to be a signal sent from the new government in Haiti to say, yes, we are ready, please come and render your assistance. And then that assistance is mobilized.
Barbados is one of 7 countries pledging security personnel to the effort, and Mr. Simmons assures there will be no invasion.
And the position has always been nothing will happen until when they are invited in. This is not about an invasion of Haiti. This is about lending assistance at the request of the Haitian government and the Haitian people. It is not supposed to be an army of occupation either.
The United Nations is backing Barbados, other CARICOM countries, Bahamas and Jamaica, along with Kenya, Bangladesh, Benin and Chad. They're all committed to help restore order in Haiti, now that Prime Minister Ariel Henry has resigned after being locked out of the country by violent gangs. Mr. Simmons envisions a long road to general elections and peace in the embattled CARICOM state.
Let us not fool ourselves. This is going to be a journey that requires constant contact with Haiti and hand-holding and support, probably for the next 2 decades.
At least renewed hope promises to clear the path to productivity in Haiti. Stacey Russell, CBC News.
Still in Barbados, the country is boasting its 12th consecutive quarter of growth and record high tourism arrival numbers. This from Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Kevin Greenidge, as he reviewed Barbados' economic performance from January to March 2024. Crystal Hoyt has the details.
The Barbados economy has grown by 4.1% in the first quarter of 2024. This is despite elevated foreign interest rates, geopolitical tensions, higher freight costs, and adverse local weather conditions.
What drove the first quarter performance was an extraordinary performance in terms of tourist arrivals. We had about 228,828 tourists on island for the first quarter. That's the highest on record any year.
Arrivals from the United States surged by 47.6%, Canada increased by 21%, but United Kingdom contracted slightly by 0.2%. However, arrival numbers remain above the pre-pandemic level. The cruise sector is also recovering with an additional 15 cruise ship calls this year compared to last. The performance in tourism spilled over, and there has been broad-based growth in other sectors, including manufacturing, construction, and wholesale.
However, we saw declines in agriculture, reflecting mainly the harsh weather conditions, extreme heat conditions, and intermediate bouts of rain. And that meant that food crop, agriculture, root crop, fruits, other meats, milk production, most of those things were affected tremendously by the extreme weather conditions, and therefore they were down.
As it relates to inflation, whilst globally declining, other factors are contributing to domestic prices.
Now, what we saw is an easing of international prices, which will have put downward pressure on the inflation rate. But at the same time, because of the adverse weather condition impacting the supply of certain root crops, food crops, and livestock, in addition for increased demand for dining out, alcohol, beverages, etc., and rental prices, that put upward pressure on the inflation rate.
The foreign reserves are at a record high with 3.3 billion reserves, which is the equivalent of 33.3 weeks of import cover. In terms of the debt position, Barbados' debt continues on a downward trajectory, ending at $114.3 million at the end of March.
Guyana will see a significant drop in oil production come July and August as ExxonMobil plans to shut down operations on 2 of its production vessels. News source Guyana's Gordon Mosley gives us the details coming out of a press conference on Tuesday.
At a media briefing today, the president of ExxonMobil Guyana, Alastair Rutledge, said with the 3 FPSOs in operation, the company is producing approximately 613,000 barrels of oil per day in the Stabroek block. However, that number is expected to fall by more than 160,000 barrels of oil per day when the operations of the Liza Destiny and the Liza Unity are halted for 2 weeks to facilitate the pipeline's connection.
It'll be roughly 14 days or 2 weeks for each one. As you are aware from other reports, the Liza Destiny is producing a capacity of around 162,000 barrels a day, and the Liza Unity has a production capacity of around 252,000 barrels per day.
In the case of the Liza Destiny, the company will not be able to produce more than 2 million barrels of oil during the 2-week period. And in the case of the Liza Unity, more than 3.5 million barrels of oil will not be produced. The ExxonMobil CEO said the shortfall in production for those 2 months was long anticipated. According to him, it is not lost production, but rather deferred production, adding that the oil would still be in the ground. He said the move to take the FPSOs offline is critical to ensure that the risers are safely connected to the FPSOs. The risers would carry the hydrocarbons from the subsea wellhead on the seabed to the FPSO unit on the surface.
In those 2 shutdowns for each of the vessels, and we do those in order to safely install the risers because it's a major operation. We want to make sure it's done safely, not at risk of any of the ongoing operation. This was already known when we first sanctioned the gas to energy project that these kind of installations would be needed. There was no existing gas risers for export of gas onshore. So we knew about it at the time. We knew we would need to plan it in detail, which is what we've been doing. It'll be roughly 14 days or 2 weeks for each one.
Meanwhile, the construction of the gas pipeline is moving apace. According to Mr. Rutledge, it is approximately 70% complete and well on track for completion by the end of this year.
On the pipeline side, the offshore portion of the pipeline is 70% complete. We currently have 2 elements of installation ongoing in the shallow waters near to shore. Is one vessel that's leading that installation, and then there's another vessel out in the deep water that is laying pipe there. Onshore, we're also making good progress, about 68% complete onshore. So you can see roughly 70% complete across the entire pipeline.
The ExxonMobil company is constructing the pipeline at the cost of $1 billion. It is expected to transport gas from its offshore operations to a $759 million power and natural gas liquids plant at Wales. The plants are being financed by the Guyana government and are expected to be completed by the end of next year.
In sports, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark is set to meet with stakeholders of the horse racing industry on Thursday to discuss recent developments which have left some disgruntled. The meeting will include jockeys, grooms, trainers, owners, promoters, veterinarians, horse care personnel, Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited, commissioners from the Jamaica Racing Commission, and other stakeholders. The West Indies women continued their fine form in Pakistan, this time defeating the home team by a nail-biting 2 runs in the third T20 International.
The Maroon ladies took first strike, and it was Hayley Matthews once more who led from the front. Matthews opened the batting and scored a rapid 68 from 49 balls, which included 10 boundaries. Chadine Nation was second best, getting 31. The West Indies finished on 132 for 5 from their 20 overs. For Pakistan, Fatima Sana was the pick of the bowlers, getting 2 for 22. In response, Pakistan were well course at 69 for 1 at the halfway stage. Sidra Amin played a solid hand of 68, which kept much pressure on the Windies women. But it was over number 18 that changed the game. Captain Matthews took 2 back-to-back wickets, which included the dangerous Amin. This put the Windies women back in the driver's seat and eventually put the game to rest, restricting Pakistan women to 130 for 8, winning by 2 runs. The 4th game of the T20 series takes place on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Caribbean Time.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.